Yo, what's good everybody? So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you why over 90% of traders lose money in this space and how you can become the top 1% of traders that do make all the money. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down 5 of the key steps of why you're losing money and how to fix them. So if we look at the analysis, right, this is on this month's trading P&Ls on Pump Fund. There was only 4 wallets that were able to make 2 to 500K, right? And I believe this was this was last recorded on June. And this over 100 to 200K, there was only 17 wallets. 50 to 100K, there were 79 wallets. 10 to 50K, 1,500 wallets. And then 1K to 10K, 14,219 wallets. 500 to 1,000, we had 11,000 wallets. And 0 to 500, we had over 497,000 wallets, right? So 0 to 500 is a little bit broad because it could be like $20, right? And then they stop trading, or it could be like maybe $300, and it doesn't matter, right? Maybe like 1 or 2 sold, right? But you could see there's a very, very slim amount of people that are taking up all the money, right? And if we look at the losses, right, we've had over 519,000 wallets lose less than $500. We've had over 9,000 wallets lose 500 to a K. We've had 11,000 lose 1K to 10K, right? And it's not like this money's not going anywhere, right? This money's going to these people that are on the top of the pyramid, right? So if you want to know how to get to the top of the pyramid, I'm going to show you exactly how, right? If we look at, unfortunately, there was somebody that lost, about $1 million or more. We had someone that lost 2 to 500K. We had someone that lost 100K, and also 13 people that lost 50 to 100K, which has to sting a little bit, right? But I'm going to show you the 5 biggest reasons on why you're losing money and how to completely flip that into making money, right? Starting with reason 1, most people are just gamblers in this space, right? Most people don't have a strategy at all. They're just pure gambling, and they don't have, they just don't know what they're doing, right? They're top blasting into coins, they're funneling into coins, and yeah, without a strategy, without any like groundwork, the building's going to fall apart, okay? Now, this is super, super, super important, right? And I have videos breaking down strategy. So if we go to Axiom, right? Let me go to Pulse and just find a random token, right? If you're looking at a coin, right? And you're just like, this would be having no strategy, right? That you would be like, oh, okay, Shocked bought this coin, right? And then you just buy exactly right after him. And then it goes up a tiny bit. And then it goes down, you get scared and you sell, right? This is like most traders. They just become exit liquidity, right? Or they just like buy the coin, a random coin, and then it just rugs and then they sell, right? They round trip everything. They don't have any strategy, right? They don't know what buying dips are. They don't know like how to sell peaks, right? So I'll break down a very, very, very like simple way of strategy, okay? So with every coin, you're going to want to buy in an entry, right? You're going to want to have at least 30 to 60% dips that, you're looking for. And the next thing that I'm going to break down is you don't even know what you're buying, right? A lot of people don't even know what they're buying. They're just like, oh, this coin, they go like this, right? They go on their Twitter tracker list or their wallet tracker, and they're just waiting for someone to buy, oh, DV bought this coin, and then boom, they buy the coin, and then they buy right here, right? They buy right here, and then DV sells, and then they sell, and they lose 50%, right? And this is how you lose money very, very, very quickly, right? Now, copy trading some wallets can be very, very, very profitable, right? And that's why I have a huge, huge, huge list in my Discord for free that gives you all the top wallets on chain, right? And even the wallets that do farm, right? Because it's good to know who's the farmers in the coin, so you don't either get in or you try to get in closer to where they got in, right? Because a lot of these people don't like to sell. Or, if you were in their position, right, do you want to sell on your entry or do you want to sell for a loss? No, you probably want the coin to go up before you sell. So if you're in a coin with a lot of people, try to get in an entry where the top holders got in. So because people are very unlikely to sell unless the coin has been, going multiple times to their entry, they're unlikely to sell on their entry, right? Because people don't want to break even, they want to make money, or people don't want to lose, right? So that's a big, big, big thing. But yeah. Now, the reason number 2 is people are late for entries, right? People are waiting for too much confirmation. They're taking too long in order to get into coins, or they're taking too long to sell, right? They think the coin's going to go to the moon. And let's say, like we have a huge, huge, huge dip all the way maybe to 25K, right? People are going to think, right, because it's just psychology that, oh, the coin's going down, it's rugging, it's fear, right? But that's exactly what you're supposed to be buying up. That's exactly what you're supposed to be scalping, right? You're supposed to be scalping the fear, selling the greed. It's very, very, very simple, right? Now, it looks like this went down to 20K, and this would be like a decent entry because that's like a support at around 20K. But I'd have to look more into the coin, right? I haven't done any research, but that's kind of where like a coin would typically bounce if it's, coming down like that. But if it's not really holding well, then it's just going to keep going lower and lower and lower. Now, support and resistance, like I'm just basically giving you like basic psychological levels. It's not going to be perfect, but the reason why I use this is because it's a way of strategy, right? But strategy is useless. Going on to my next point, strategy is useless without having human intuition, right? Because if it was all about strategy, you could literally have like ChatGPT do all your trades for you. But ChatGPT doesn't know what's funny. They can't laugh at something, right? They don't know if something's good. They don't know, if the dev is trying to rug it or the dev walked out, right? So this is where the human element comes in, right? It's like yin and yang with trading. Now, if you have the human element, right, but you don't have any strategy, then you're going to be buying the top of it, FOMOing in. So you need to have both. And, I literally perfectly marked the bottom. It's just because I know, right? It literally like standed a little bit here, consolidated, kind of built a little bit of support, it broke. And, the thing is, yes, it could break through it. So that's why there's like more factors you have to look at the coin, right? So FAT, it's party hat. So we can look and see if this community is active, right? And let's look at the latest post. So last post was 42 seconds ago from this guy. Let's see how many followers he has, 149. So he's just a normal dude. Cousin, just like normal people that are posting, which is good, right? And there's only 3 posts, which is a little bit questionable, right? There's 3 posts total on this coin that somehow went to 56K market cap, right? Which leaves me questioning a little bit, right? Is this really something to buy? Is this just a cabal? And we can also look at the insiders. So there's 7% insiders, there's 20% bundlers. Now, people think about bundlers, right? A lot of people will just sit at their computer all day. Oh, the bundlers are bad, right? The thing is, the truth is there are always going to be bundlers in a coin. I make videos showing you how to find bundlers. And, that's not the end all be all for a coin. Sometimes coins send with bundlers in them, right? And it sucks that there is bundlers, right? Because they extract more and more and they can this could have been a bundled sell, right? These are super fat candles. It could have been multi-walleted and they dumped, right? So it's good to track because if the bundles get out of a coin and it's a good coin, that's where you're able to get a very, very, very good entry, right? But the strategy about this is you're not going to be buying right here, right? You're not going to be buying in this area because, then you figure out it's good, right? And then you start buying in this area because it's more likely to come down or consolidate. It's a very, very random thing, right? But when you're buying in these very, very, very big dips, right? All the way from 40, like I said, 30 to 60% dips. If it's like 70%, you're gonna want to question, right? Is this coin like rugging, right? Because if it's a 30 to 60% dip, right? Like say 40, 50%, then it's more likely just a dip, right? It's more likely the top holders or, like top traders that are just clipping out and taking their profits and just moving on to the next coin, right? Which gives you an entry in order to scalp it, right? From looks like 20K, you could scalp it all the way to 30 and you make 50% on this coin, right? So this is me breaking down very, very simple strategy. And if you guys would like more videos on strategy, feel free to let me know. But yes, this is like very like basic level strategy, which a lot of people, quite frankly, don't really do, right? They just buy a coin. Maybe they think it's funny. Maybe they think it's a good coin, but they don't have any entry plan, right? They don't have an exit plan. And they enter in a coin at like the worst time and then they wonder why it goes down. They get scared when it goes down and they start, getting absolutely cooked. If you're able to buy right here, right when it super nukes like this, right? There's going to be an imbalance between buyers and sellers, right? The sellers are going to be way less and the buyer potential is going to be way more. This is going to be the group of all the potential buyers. If the coin is a good coin, right? If you did your research and you're like, okay, so there's a lot of people in this community. There's a lot of people posting like, oh, they pay DEX, right? Oh, that's a good thing. The insiders is going down, the bundles is going down. That probably was a bundle nuke, right? So this is all the potential buyers when the price gets down to this price, right? If you're trying to trade it at this price right here, when it's consolidating, the potential buyers is like this and the potential sellers is like this, right? Unless something big happens, unless someone tweets about it, or unless somebody gets into the coin that's notable, right? So you need to be able to understand these things and you need to wait for the trade to come to you. Because if you just always try to, just blast into coins and you get impatient, then it's going to, end out, or it's going to turn out very, very, very badly, right? Now, the next thing I want to touch up on is FOMO, right? FOMO and emotional trading. This is not just a game you versus other people, it's also a game you versus yourself, right? Because I've seen a lot of people paper trade, right? So if you don't know what paper trading is basically trading with not real money, so you can learn how to trade without losing your own money, right? It's a very, very, very good thing, which we didn't have back then when I was trading. So at least in meme coins. So it's a very, very, very cool like thing that you can learn without the cost of losing tons of money, right? Especially if you don't know how to manage your risk. So what I noticed is some people actually get profitable pretty quickly with paper trading, and then they start switching into normal trading, and then they're not profitable anymore. So this leads me back to the psychological thing, right? They're able to do the strategy is the thing that's working, right? So there's nothing wrong. The only issue with them is their emotional state, right? They're emotional, they can't trade, right? They're stressing, right? They're FOMO, and then that's the only difference basically, right? Because it's not the trading style. They're trading fine, but when they trade with their own money, they get scared. And there's a big saying, right? Scared money doesn't make money. So if you don't have a plan, the market will make one for you basically. So you need to have a plan in every coin. You need to have an entry plan, and you need to have an exit plan, right? If you just buy a coin, right, and you buy in here in this dip maybe, and then let me draw it real quick. You buy in on this dip, and then you're just holding it, and then you go all the way down here. You get scared, you see this thing, and you sell, right? And then you just round tripped, right? You just did like a whole arc, right? And because you didn't have an entry or an exit plan. For me, since I'm a scalper, if I saw this dump, I'd go here and scalp up here. That's just my strategy, right? I take my 50%, like say I put in 2 SOL, I take my 1 SOL of profit, and I move on to the next coin, right? Some people like to hold, but for me, I'd rather get into like say 10 coins, and 7 out of 10 of them I make money, right? The other 3 I either break even or I cut my loss very quickly, versus waiting like 2 hours for a good coin that maybe sends or not, right? And I could risk round tripping it, right? And everybody's strategy is different, right? If you're a beginner, I would recommend stacking consistent wins, right? So we can see this coin starting to get back up to this level. So if it's able to break this 40 level, it needs to come back to its all-time high, right? Now, like this is like basic technical analysis. Like if you guys start running like crazy things, and it's just like they're like for what, right? This coin is so new. It's 90% of it is just dependent on how people feel, right? How the community is. But if you're looking for entries, you need to be using at least a solid strategy that is not over complicated, right? Which like you could use like, ones, fives, tens, right? You've noticed on migration, right? That's another psychological level where people start nuking on migration before or after, right? Because that's where everybody wants to sell. So if you're able to sell before them, then you're most likely not going to round trip a bunch of money. Now, the next thing is you don't have any risk management, right? This is probably one of the most important things, because sometimes I do the same thing, right? Sometimes I overexpose myself into a trade. I oversize into a trade, and it can end up very, very, very badly, right? Like say I'm down on a coin and I keep DCAing, right? Dollar cost averaging into the coin, even though it's money that I probably wouldn't feel comfortable losing, right? The thing is with a good strategy is you want to be risking a small percent of your portfolio. So if your portfolio, right, like say you have 10 SOL. So let me get my drawing thing again. Like say you got 10 SOL. What do you want? What would your risk management be, right? Well, let's say bad risk management would be that if you do one trade, you could completely wipe your account, right? So that would be, let's say you trade 9 SOL out of your 10 SOL on one trade. That is very, very bad risk management. Ideally, you want to risk 10% of your portfolio, right? Or if you're like, a very, very big trader, you're going to be wanting to risk 1%. But most people don't have 100 SOL balance to start, right? Which you're going to want to at least risk 10 to 20%, I would say, depending on your portfolio size of your portfolio. So if you have a 10 SOL balance, I would risk 1 SOL per trade, or maybe even 0.5, right? 0.5. That way, if your risk of ruin, right? Your risk of completely getting like your whole account just destroyed is way, way, way less unlikely. Well, actually it's impossible if you know how to manage your risk, because if you're over DCAing, over getting into trades, it won't happen. The max you could lose per trade is, 10%, right? If you put 1 SOL, or, if you put 0.05 of 10 SOL, that's 5% of your whole account, which in the sense, going back to what I was saying before, emotionally attached into your trading, right? You're going to be way less emotionally attached if your whole account isn't on the line, which means you'll be able to take more trades, better trades, and with a more clear mind, right? And also, you're able to be fine with taking trades with good R&R, right? Good risk versus reward. Look at the risk versus reward right here, right? Let me clear out all my drawings real quick because we got like a whole painting right here. So this is your risk versus reward, right? If you're buying in on these crazy dips, you put like, oh wait, let me draw this out again. Okay, right here. So you're risking what? Like up to, let's say you enter at 20K, you're probably going to be wanting to get out around 17, right? And I don't really recommend putting stop losses and all that other stuff for this kind of trading because it moves too fast, right? But you need to have a mental stop loss where you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this at 20K, right? If it starts going below this, like this is how I would see this. If it starts trying to come up, usually you want to see these come up pretty quickly, right? You want to buy in. You don't want to wait for confirmation, first of all, right? Maybe wait for one buy for confirmation. But if you start waiting for multiple confirmations, you're going to be too late. It's going to already be up here and you're going to be exit liquidity. So you need to be able to take the action yourself, right? You need to be the one that makes the moves in the market, right? If I buy this candle, I'm going to make a nice little green candle. Sometimes a big green candle, right? Just depending, right? But then it's going to trigger more people to FOMO in, and then people are going to come up, right? And this is a good risk versus reward ratio versus, let me draw how the risk versus reward ratio would be here. If you're buying in on like this tiny dip right here, your risk versus reward is like this because you're risking way more downside, right? Because you don't really know what can happen. And especially if this is closer to an all-time high, right? Let's say you bought this dip right here on this all-time high, right? You bought that tiny dip right here. It's kind of hard. Let me put this on this side so it's easier to see. So you bought this kind of dip right here from 55 to 50. That's really not a dip, right? That's just maybe someone selling like 1 or 2 SOL, right? So that's just randomness. So if you buy this dip, the likelihood of it coming up to your all-time high is 50-50, right? I don't want to say like, even less because you don't really know, right? It's a very, very like 50-50 thing. Now, the likelihood of it going down when it hits a resistance like this, you see how a coin, like people at 50K, right? Or 100K, there's going to be a lot of sell pressure. That's just where people like to sell. If you know like simple basics of trading, right? And if you're waiting for an entry, I would enter from 25, or I would maybe look for an entry at like 25 to 30K possibly, if you're wanting to enter in this coin, if you want to get a really good entry, right? So let's see where that ended. 35 right here. You could have entered right here. Now you could have scalped it up to like 42 and notice that it was taking a long time, got out, and most likely got out of your full position, right? Because if it really takes time to come back up to where it was earlier, then it's typically not really a good sign, right? It shows that the coin's dying out, it's losing attention, right? And yeah, like I think the most important thing is just not wiping out your account, which is why you need to have risk management, and it's why you need to have a strategy entering your trades. Now, the last one is going to be diamond hands, right? People will hold their coins for too long. And this is a very, very bad thing because sometimes I'm guilty of it, right? I round tripped like 8 SOL the other day on a coin because I wanted to get up to like 11 or 12 SOL. I had a limit sell at 600K. I bought in at exactly like 100K almost. When it dipped, it went up to like 150 or 160. It dipped all the way down. I got a perfect entry. And it went all the way up to, I believe it was like 350 or 360. Okay, market cap. And I put in 1.5 SOL. So it was around, I want to say it was like 5 or 6 SOL. And I ended up round tripping all the way down to my entry because I had a limit order. And yeah, it's just greed, right? And I wasn't really mad, right? Because I knew like I had my stop loss there. So I really didn't lose any money, but I round tripped, right? I was up on it and I just had too high of expectations. These aren't blue chip stocks, right? They're not most of these are not utility. Most of them are memes. Most of the time the dev is going to give up on it. And this is what you have to know when you're trading meme coins. And if you're able to, take the things that I say in this video, really absorb it and, really take action, right? Then you're going to become very, very, very profitable. I can guarantee you that, right? And this is the exact reason how I became profitable, right? I started understanding, I started analyzing my trades, right? The most important trades are your losing trades, not your winning trades, right? Because anybody can show cool P&Ls and whatever, right? But a lot of people don't show their losing trades, right? And if you're able to look at why you lost, there could be multiple reasons, right? It doesn't just have to be one reason why you lost, but if you can look at all these different reasons and be like, okay, well, firstly, I'm trading during a time that I don't really trade the best, right? Sometimes people trade better during the night. Sometimes people trade better during the day. Sometimes certain strategies work better during the day than at nighttime, right? Depending on where you live, whatever country, right? What I've noticed is if you like trading Twitter plays, right? Like Twitter tracker plays, you buy new pairs, snipe buy, boom, right? That's usually good during US daytime hours because that's when Elon's awake. That's when, all these other big people are awake. And that's where a lot of these kind of plays happen, right? But then on final stretch, there begins to be a lot of like farm coins. So right now it's a little bit later, right? It's around like 10:50 p.m. Where I'm at, right, in the US. And this is actually like a good time usually. Sometimes it isn't, right? But it's usually a good time for scalping memes, right? Or trading meme coins, right? Like actual memes or community coins or stuff in that like likelihood or whatever. But like with Twitter tracker, sometimes Elon will start tweeting stuff at nighttime, right? And things do send. So it's a very, very random thing, but you can notice there's like certain patterns with people, right? Like when Elon gets on, he'll get on at certain times. He'll start posting when he's active. Or you'll notice patterns in the market. You'll notice patterns with coins. And pattern recognition is a real thing, right? But patterns doesn't relatively mean what happened before will happen again, right? So you need to know that when you're seeing a coin. Oh, I've seen this chart before. I know where to buy in, and you buy in and you get rugged, right? Because charts are just about human, behavior, and they're, basically drawing their feelings onto a chart, right? Everybody's has a place on that chart, and they had their own emotion when they push the buy button, and they had their own emotion when they push the sell button. So yes, I hope this video you guys found helpful. I try my best to try to like put out like content consistently as well as good quality content, right? I try to, really make you guys lock in. And yeah, if you guys need a free Discord, which I think is very, very important for anybody that's trading, right? And a community, I have a free Discord in the link in the description or in my bio. And also, if you guys need a good trading platform, the best one I recommend right now is Axiom. It is the fastest and the lowest fees, and you actually get paid to trade on it. Now, if you guys didn't know, I'm going to be doing a giveaway for the top traders in volume, right? So all you got to do is sign up with my Axiom, right? And just trade. That's all you got to do. It doesn't matter whether you make money or lose money. The top 5 people are going to be getting free SOL. So yeah, make sure you join the Discord. Also, I have a free Telegram, so make sure you join the Telegram. I'll have all of that linked in the Discord. And if you guys need any free crypto bonuses, like, referrals or whatever, I show you how to do that in the Discord. So if you guys have a small portfolio, you can get like 500 to 700 USD with these bonuses, right? Like, let's say Coinbase or Gemini or Kraken. These are all like exchanges that give you like free crypto for signing up and doing like one trade on there. So very, very, very simple. So the money's out there for you guys, right? Be that 1%, lock in, and yeah, thank you for watching.